all. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'll be loud, so you're gonna. Well, welcome all who are here in person or online, just confirming we're unmuted online as well. Thank you all for giving us a bit of your time this afternoon to talk about this important project. I also be remiss to not know we're thankful to the Chamber for allowing us to have this conversation in this space. And to any members of the public who are joining us online, also thankful for your participation. This is a hybrid meeting. And so I just want to note a couple of things that are going to help us to have the best possible hybrid meeting where all of us here that are participating online, but also the people who are here in person are able to have a great experience and participate as equally as we can set it up. Yeah.
Is there a video for the folks at home that can see this?
Correct. So I'm going to note that in just a second.
I'm just wondering where the camera is.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm going to note that in just a second. So if you look at your desk, you'll see there are 4 microphones here on the table. The bigger ones are also speakers, so don't be startled when somebody speaks online and the big sound right next to you. The small ones are just microphones. Something important to keep in mind, and before I know about the cameras, I do want to know when it comes to microphones online, there's something really important. It's going to pick up any sound. It's going to pick up the whisper that, I lean over and tell something to Greg, right? It's going to pick up a lot of noise that I make here on the desk. And so want to make sure that we avoid sound conflict as much as possible. That also includes making sure that we speak one at a time, that we reduce interruption as much as possible, especially here in person. If you're needing to speak on something, that you turn your name tag, your tent vertical, instead of jumping in while the presentation is going on, because when people do that, the experience online does deteriorate. We are going to be talking about this in just a second, but there is going to be ample time after each presentation to have a conversation. And so we do ask you to refrain from jumping in while presentations are going on. When it comes to the visual aspect of it, there are a couple of things. There's a white shot here on the corner of the room. You can see the light over there. That is a camera that is capturing the entire table. We also have these Chromebooks over here facing the 2 corners, which does capture you all as CWG members here in person. And of course, the presenters have computers in front of them, which are going to capture their faces as they present. And the big idea here is to make sure that people online are able to see the people that are speaking and are able to engage at that level in a way that, again, is going to approximate as much as possible what would be a true hybrid experience. That's what we're trying to achieve here, because we'll talk a little bit about this in just a second. But when we achieve, people getting to participate fully online, hopefully we have a better conversation with more contributions from everybody included in it. A lot of times, most people are joining these meetings online. So it was a priority for us to make sure that we keep it accessible in that way. A couple of things that I want to know. For those of us who are online, if you are needing to be elevated right now, as you join, you're going to be added as a member of the public, a guest. If you are a member of the CWG, we want to make you into a panelist. We are running a Zoom webinar. And so what we ask of you right now is if you are a guest at the moment and you are a CWG member, we want you to raise your hand online. We'll elevate you to a panelist so that you can unmute and you could speak at any moment where you need to do so. This is also going to be the same approach we're going to take as it relates to participation. So if you have anything to say online, again, refrain from jumping in unannounced, raise your hands, If you can wait until we have time for conversation, then we will call on you to unmute and to speak. Members of the public, you are not able to participate in the chat that we have with CWG members, but you are able to send in questions through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So I want to encourage you to use that function to let us know if there's anything that is not working properly, or if any questions come up as we are having our presentations here. Something that I do want to note about that is comments from the public are going to be last. And we are going to prioritize CWG comments, which again happen here in person when you turn your name plate vertical, and or when you raise your hand as a panelist online. We'll check on you. I do want to again emphasize we want to avoid interruption. We want to avoid crosstalk. If you're a member of the public here physically in this space and you have a comment to make, you can approach the table at the corner and speak so that people online can hear you fully as well. One more thing about the experience. This is one that really bridges the online and the in-person world. We are going to be using an interactive polling feature in this conversation. It's called Mentimeter, and what that means is we're going to share a link through the chat function to the panelists, meaning only CWG members will receive this link, open up the website and answer the questions on the poll that is online. In person, we have in front of you a QR code or a code that you can add to a site. It's called menti.com. Pretty simple, you can do it on your cell phone. And you'll have the question right in front of you to answer at the moment where it is appropriate. So we'll go through that again in just a couple of minutes there where we have the first instance during the design presentation. So just wanted to give you all a heads up about that. Does anybody at this point have any questions on the technical aspects of the hybrid meeting, Zoom, anybody online, in person? Okay. Hearing nothing, I will say one more thing from an accessibility standpoint. If you are online and you want transcription to be enabled, I want you to encourage you to look at the bottom bar of your Zoom window where you should see a button that says show captions. So if you click on that, you should be able to see the captions as they are processed and captured through our speakers, our microphones here. Okay. With that, we can go ahead and turn off, stop screen sharing with the presentation. And we'll do a couple of introductions from our end on staff. And then, of course, go around the room and online to hear about who is in attendance today from the CWG, of course. I, myself, am Frank Ponciano. I'm a facilitator for the CWG, starting obviously with this meeting. I'll speak on what our approach is going to be in just a second, but I personally, I'm really excited to be part of this effort. It's a project I obviously have been aware about. I live downtown San Jose myself, and expect hopefully that I would be somebody that would use this service myself. And so I consider it a professional milestone of sorts to be here facilitating these CWGs, sharing this time with you all. And so, as I stated, my goal is to make sure that we enable both staff to provide you the messaging you need to communicate with the community and give us great feedback, and also want to enable a space that is accessible, that allows people to fully participate, whether they are online or whether they're participating in person. That's my goal. I'm here with Laura Nguyen, who is on the projector right now, but Laura is going to be your liaison as the CWG coordinator to staff. And so any inquiries, any comments, any conversation that you're wanting to have, any feedback you're wanting to provide in between CWG meetings should go through Laura, and Laura will be responsive to it, and make sure that we take care of whatever requests you've got. On the other end of things, Laura is the person you're gonna hear from when it comes to meetings, going on, whether they're interim meetings or quarterly meetings, or any other updates that we're sending out to the CWG. So again, the name is Laura Nguyen. Do make sure you keep an eye out on your inbox, for the name. We also have Britt Earhart right over here. Thank you, Britt. Britt is going to be the engagement and participation deputy as part of the EAT. And so going to be working with Laura and myself to make sure we're providing you a great experience with CWG members, enabling the kind of participation that I know you all deserve. Thank you, Britt. I also want to name, we have station coordinators, station planners, and station-specific public communication staff here as well. Here on the side of the room, I saw Collins over here as well, if you want to stand, Collins, and you all as well. This is just wanted to make sure that you were all aware. You know, they might not be here in future meetings, but they are the people that are working behind the scenes on anything, on the things that regard Diridon and downtown. And of course, you'll hear from each presenter as we go through this presentation. You're all familiar also with who they are. And so just ask that when we start the presentation, you name, here's my name, here's what I do, and we can move on. Thank you all again. We're very excited to get going. We want to start with hearing from you. And so want to go around the room here in the physical space and then go online and hear from any of our CWG members online. Want to hear your name, your organization, which you are representing today. And there is a question that we have for you all, which is, what are your personal goals about your CWG involvement in 2026? What do you want to bring into this space and get out of this experience? And so keeping it broad, want to hear what you got to say there. We'll start here in the left with you, Eric, and we'll move this way.
Thank you. Yeah, Eric Eidlin. I'm Station Planning Manager with the City of San Jose Department of Transportation. I work on Diridon Station and importantly, the Santa Clara Street, reimagining Santa Clara Street project. So I'm not a CWG member officially, but city representative.
My apologies. Go ahead.
Yeah, Bert Weaver, represent the Del Monte Park Neighborhood Association. I think my neighbors and I are all just really excited seeing the plans for the BART extension to start to develop and get more and more time free.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Bert.
Yeah, Alan Williams with Bankley Park, CCA, and the neighborhood. The thing that I'm trying to track closer is the construction management plans as they come up with the different, especially the downtown station, downtown construction. My initial focus, which was on the 13th Street work, that's gone now, so it's primarily just the downtown construction for 2026. I think we've seen one plan come out. I think there's more coming up.
Thank you. Tony.
Tony Miranda, with actually representing the Chamber of Commerce, especially with Mitchell Corporation with large construction management and owners rep, and proud to be the chair for the CWG for Downtown-Diridon stations. Active member of the chamber, past board chair, actually ran for a little while, so was able to get Leah to take over. Thank God. But really happy to see this continue. Been an avid user of BART and actually VTA. I actually live in the East Bay. It's like Fort San Jose when I was growing up. But wanting to see this extension badly. Yeah, just want to make sure it stays on the right track. So I'm particularly interested in the design of the downtown station and the Diridon stations because they will be very largely used. And we want to make sure it's the right experience.
Thank you, Tony.
Hi, I'm Martin Flores. I'm representing San Jose Arena Authority, and my representative with the Arena Authority, as you all know, the San Jose Arena was one of the major functions here, getting guests and sports and things, and so we want to ensure that the staging and not only the design, but the construction fits along with some of our scheduling in terms of our events and things that are happening. I'm also a landscape architect and urban designer, so how it interfaces from a public perspective, getting to and from the station to the arena, as well as transporting people from outside the area to the arena, I think is a very, very important thing, as well as the river park. So we're looking at it as a bunch of different perspectives. One, how it's constructed and how we can interface with it and ensure that the interface is moving smoothly with some of the events that we are having forward. And two, getting enough clients and people here so that they can experience the arena rather than driving. And that's something that really, as well as ensuring that the station itself has a San Jose type of experience also, and the quality of design and infrastructure is there.
Thank you, Martin.
Hi, sorry for being late. Keep from class. But my name is Fernando Cruz Esparza. I'm the student representative for San Jose State University as well as Columbia University. And currently we're working on the various equity market relocation projects, one of them being in downtown. So me personally, I hope that potentially if we do move forward with the downtown relocation, the BART extension could support with a lot of the public transit use to the market. Right now, the various equity market is in front of the new BART station extension, but most people do use still their cars to get to that location. So I'm hoping that we can expand the market in downtown, revitalize downtown, as well as now having an extension for public transit to that market if the project allows. So thank you for that.
We appreciate that. Going to call, as of right now, I'm seeing 3 CWG members online. We'll start with Anne Marie Todd.
Hi, perfect. I'm happy to be another Spartan from San Jose State. Following up, I want to give a shout out to Communiversity and our students. I'm the Dean of the College of Social Sciences, and that houses the School of Planning, Policy, and Environmental Studies. And I think I may have seen Kelly Snyder in the room. And that is where we have people studying transportation, urban planning, urban design, and all of that. I have 2 goals for my participation. One is to attend in person, so I can meet y'all in person. And the second is to really think about the ways that San Jose State as an anchor institution in downtown can contribute to the planning, but also to be able to provide more information from this group to the San Jose State community. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Going to check in with James Duran.
Hello, this is James Duran. I'm with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. My interests are primarily 2. One is I want to understand what is going on with the building of the stations when they occur in terms of how they will impact Hispanic business and small business in general. That's my first concern. And my second one is that a large portion of the ridership will be Hispanic, and I want to make sure that our needs are being served. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Lastly, checking in with Nate.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nate LeBlanc. I work at the San Jose Downtown Association. We're longstanding members of the CUG, mostly here to gather information and share our perspective, and are mostly concerned with how this project affects the small business community. But of course, we're just generally concerned about the vitality of downtown in general and how this will play a role in that, which is going to be major when it gets going. So thanks for doing this, and I'll be hanging out.
Great. Thanks, Nate. Do we have any other CWG members online who I did not call on? Okay. Hearing none. Again, thank you all for making time to be with us today. I think it's going to be a really useful conversation, and I'm looking forward to getting the feedback that I know we need as things move forward. And as this is the first meeting of 2026, we thought it was useful to establish some baseline basics about this thing we're doing, the CWG. Starting with the purpose of it, which is for you all to be liaisons between VTA and the community. And to both be able to voice to us what community sentiments and feedback are about the project at this moment in time. And to also be able to communicate out what updates we provide you at these meetings, at your neighborhood association or organizational meetings, to make sure that there is this constant line of communication as this project moves forward. And, you know, one thing that is not, and, you know, as I was sort of preparing for this meeting and was asking questions, is something that may not be understood by all, is just how important the CWG is in the process that is BSB2. Not only do we have all of the staff that is dedicated to making sure that we address your concerns and your questions, and that we tailor our meetings to the items you've identified are needed to be discussed. There's a lot of prep that goes into these things. Weeks of conversations internally, material prep, outreach, and communication, a whole lot of work. And part of the reason is, of course, this is a project that is a movement. Things are happening, it's dynamic. It's important to establish one thing, which is, it is a practice for VTA staff to present to this group what items are going to be presented to the board. It is a practice that they've taken on for a number of years now. And so whatever you hear here today and at CWG meetings is essentially what comes up to the board and what is discussed. And the board wants to know that these conversations have happened by the time content is presented to them. So that really, in my mind, as I was learning about the CWGs, it really underlines the importance of it. It cannot be understated. Another thing that cannot be understated is this project is massive, right? We're talking about one of the largest infrastructure projects, public transportation projects in the country, if not the largest or second largest at this point in time. And the biggest thing about it is, some of you might know, it's been a long conversation. Right. I've talked to Tony, I've talked to you, I've talked to others on other CWGs that have been involved on this thing for 30 years, like from the beginning of these conversations. And well, we're in the home stretch, right? We're getting closer and closer to where, you know, there is actual service going on. Each of the conversations that we bring up in this space has real world implications. We're going to talk about design today. We're going to hear about construction. You're going to see that is happening. And so what feedback we get from you has real world implications, and you'll see these things reflected in our built environment sooner rather than later. We can get jaded because it's been a long time, but in the grand scheme, we're in the home stretch. And so I wanted to highlight this starting in 2026, because this is where we need the most CWG engagement, right? And we only have a couple of meetings a year, which is to say we only have a couple of meetings before this thing's gone, right? And so each of these conversations takes on importance as we get closer and closer, right? And yet, as I look at the numbers on CWG engagement, I'm noticing a couple of things. I'm noticing, number one, 2025 was some of the highest absence rates for the CWGs across the board, including Downtown-Diridon. And if I look at the October meeting, especially online, we have 2 comments in an hour and a half from the same person. Which is to say, we need to make sure we provide the experience that's going to lead to richer conversations across the board. We want to provide the CWG the kind of experience where you are all, and the people that are not here today are going to feel like, hey, it's worth my time showing up and participating in these conversations. We can't just say it's important that the project's going on. It's about the experience that you get, right? And so that's what we're trying to provide you. So let me ask you this question. This is one where I would want to go around the room and hear from each of you. In your experience on the CWG so far, what might you have seen that has served as a barrier to either your participation, your regular attendance, or other CWG members' participation, regular attendance, that we should be mindful of as we think about how to improve the experience? And I want to start here with Fernando Rubio. And make my way toward the left here in the in-person table, and then I'll check in with all of you online as well. If you don't mind me, you can say as little as much as you'd like. You can skip if you'd like, but I do want to check in with all of you. Let's go, Fernando.
At least for me, since I started last semester, it's usually always on a Tuesday, and most students, I usually always have class on Tuesdays around this time. I'm missing class right now, which is totally fine. But that's probably my only barrier at the moment with attending the meetings is class for me as a student representative.
Thank you, Fernando.
There's the similar issues that we have in terms of the time, the date. Unfortunately, a lot of our dates aren't locked in time, so attendance is sometimes tough. There's Chris Morrissey and myself that we work together in terms of counting. One of the things that Chris and I talked about, again, I mentioned that we're really concerned or ensuring that some of the construction aspects are discussed and open so that we can have a forum about if these are going to be working within how we're doing our business. We're currently going over a multi-million-dollar improvement for the arena right now. It's supposed to be done within a few years, but again, who knows how long that's gonna take. But again, ensuring that some of the improvements in infrastructure additions or subtractions are thoroughly discussed and understood, not only from a pedestrian level, but from a vehicular level. I think it's really important for us because again, we get a lot of people who drive and take a train and take a bus. So we want to ensure that type of thing is clearly understood, and how we're going to move forward. So that's one of the things that we I bring back to the board members, Chris and I, in terms of where we're at. Because we always get this, where are we? I know we had a long discussion of tunnel boring, state over double. That took a very long time, and we were again finally getting to a place that we're doing a single, so without getting to go back. But again, that took a long time to have that decision made. So we're looking at how we engage our members, understanding that this is coming, just like you said, this is coming.
Right.
And we're moving forward. So we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to discuss, engage with how this is going to work back or work within our system.
Yeah, thank you, Tony.
Yeah, personally, not had any barriers. Always trying to make sure I can be here. I really like the hybrid model because I think it allows people to engage. Because one of the harder things about downtown is getting here this time of day, which I am from Santa Clara, I'm 5 miles away for 45 minutes just to get here from a meeting. So that's a little bit of a challenge, I think. But I think it's really important to keep this as a transparent piece to the community. We have lots of businesses around here. Of course, we're right next to the station, probably a couple hundred feet away. We want to make sure that the area is vibrant for our businesses. Why we did such a strong stand on how the tunnel was going to be constructed, because we've got lots of businesses up and up border here that would really suffer, we believe. And so we're happy to see the board back where we talked about. But I think it's really important to continue, as we talked about, to show that we're not planning anymore, we're in construction. And people need to see those updates. And I appreciate the updates that you're sending because we get those out to our businesses through our email blasts. And we've had a lot of good feedback on that, just so people are aware of what's going on when there's a PG&E shutdown, and even descriptively what's going to happen at the station locations, because that's where I think we're going to see probably the biggest impact from the interaction with people around that area. I mean, right now, where work's being done is a little bit off base, so it's not bad, but there are shutdowns and things like that that people need to be aware of. They really appreciate when we can get that information. So continuing to try and get that out to our networks, I think is really important. And then ultimately the design experience, like I said, we're now getting into I like to call it the fun part, the digging a tunnel is boring. I'm civil, I love digging, but what does a station look like? I've ridden BART for 45 years and the East Bay stations are deplorable at best. It's good enough just to get in and hopefully get on a train without a lot of hassle. And I think we've echoed over and over about the Grand Central Station concept of a downtown station. And we're pleased with what we've been able to come up with so far. I'm anxious to see the evidence now, but we want to make sure that we put our dollars in the right spot for that experience piece, especially with these two stations, which are the two that we're holding on the most because of SAP and because of what the chamber downtown area, what it does to San Jose State. Just imagine all the students that could actually get to school, with a nice communication, transportation piece that's something they can afford. That's a real important thing. Parking is always a problem in downtown, and it's going to continue to be a problem and more businesses that are coming here. So also very excited about the potential for transit development, because we think that's going to be an economic driver for the downtown area. And we're looking forward to that. We're starting to get more involved with housing issues that the mayor's been pushing. So I think we're going to see more downtown density. And it's just going to be nice to have another alternative to get in and out of the downtown.
That's right. Thank you, Tony. Alan?
So I've always prioritized attending these meetings, been involved in this one or another for 28 years. So, and of course, my neighborhood was also involved for this. One of the reasons it's important, the time to be able to make decisions or influence things is early on. These things go decades. It's when you see it develop and standing and you say, oh, I don't like that. Well, why do they do that? Well, you can't get involved. So it's been very important for me to represent my neighborhood, make sure they get the voice to provide feedback at the right time. And I prefer in person. I live close to downtown, so I just bring my bike here, so I don't have the traffic issues. So I can't really say that. I mean, this was. I mean, I was hoping it would be meeting at the new VTA building. What's going on with that? You guys just not giving us nice access to the nice new building?
Yeah, I am. We'll see.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Is there anything more you want to add there? Is there anything more you want to add?
I made it work with work. I told them, this time that I need, so
It's important too. Yeah, thank you for that. More conversation on the locations at some point.
Yeah, so I also try to prioritize these meetings, get them on my calendar. So as much advance notice that we have on when the meetings are going to be scheduled, that helps. Other things come up in life, of course, where I'll have to miss one. But, I try to keep it as a high priority item. And I kind of agree with what Tony was saying there about the people in my neighborhood. They're going to get a lot more excited and interested and involved when construction on the station starts. I mean, the TBM launch structure is okay. It's interesting, if you like big construction things. But when they start digging the hole over there in the Diridon parking lot or down here on Santa Clara Street, the people that I deal with are going to be a whole lot more interested in the world.
Yeah. Thank you very much. No, Okay. I'm gonna jump over to the online folks. Get started with Anne-Marie.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. I want to echo what the last person just said, as I think we're at a real crucial moment here where there's going to be a lot more interest as breaking ground happens, as construction happens. And I think we have a real opportunity to do outreach. And I say that as a lead-in because asking about feedback about the meetings, somebody else mentioned the timing of the meeting is is interesting. It kind of straddles the end of the workday and after the workday. And so it's hard for me when I'm leaving a meeting. And I can't, like, I'm at San Jose's, like, I can't even get across town in time, much less the person that it took 45 minutes for Santa Clara. So I really appreciate the hybrid approach. The second thing, and I mean, in all respect, is that these are the meetings that I've attended in the last, I think, year and a half I've been on this. They are very information rich. And that is fantastic. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. I feel like in my role, I would like a little bit, and there maybe not be a need for conversation, but I would like a little guidance on how do I take this information and share it with my community, our community, the San Jose State community, and our downtown community. I also think is that we have a very, very intense meeting with lots of information, and then there's not much in between. Now, no one wants more meetings. I'm not, please don't hate me in there. I can't see all of you. But I think if there's some opportunities, and I know that there are other working groups, and I'm on one for the downtown station and all that. But I think if there are structured opportunities for us to engage with this information with our, in teams or something with different aspects of the community, I'm super interested in the business how the business community themselves thinking about the impact of parking and construction, and then the ultimate impact of having more people come downtown. So I think that I don't. That's what I want to say, and I think I really appreciate the work that goes into these meetings because there's a lot to know. And I also think that now, as we're getting into construction, it's like, oh, okay, now people are going to be asking a lot of questions, and I want to be able to say, hey, I'm on the community working group. I'm happy to chat with you about this. Here's a little bit of an information sheet or something like that. So thank you for the opportunity for feedback.
Right. James.
Hello. For me, my biggest concern that impacts engagement of our community is full disclosure on the financing and financial viability of this project. So I have the concern that we have spent and will continue to spend time on something that may never happen further than it is now. I have concerns about having a couple of holes in the ground, and that will be the end of it. Some of you may recall, many years ago, about 50 years ago, there was a place where 680, 280 crossed over 101, and there were these patches of freeway way in the air with no way to get down or up on them. I'm feeling like this project could be that kind of a project. So that is a big concern. Before I try to engage my community, I want to know what I'm talking about and say that I'm fully knowledgeable. We understand the financing. This is going to happen, and this is the timing of when it's going to happen. I can't say that right now. Thank you.
Thanks, James. And lastly, Nate.
Hi. Yeah, I guess I don't know why you're asking the people who are here why we don't participate. I think there's a lot of names on the list. Maybe some emails could be sent in between the meetings. I'm here. Let's do this.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think part of it is you all might have some insight because you're here now, but you maybe have not been here in past meetings and or communicate with other people that are members of the CWG. So we thought it would be a missed opportunity at the beginning of the year as it relates to the CWG not to have this conversation, but I hear your thought. One thing that I do want to know, especially here and what you noted, Emery, is what we want to do to make sure that there is continuous communication in between CWGs as well. Number one, part of our approach is going to be having intentional check-ins and one-to-ones in between meetings, especially checking in with people who were absent and people who were absent, we don't know why. The second thing is, being much more diligent about replacing inactive members. Bringing on new members who are, willing and able and interested in participating more fully in the process. And then lastly, increasing interactivity at the meeting. Part of this was an exercise in making sure that we hear from every single one of you on an important question. I think it's something that give us feedback at the end. We'll have a polling component where we want to hear, did this work? Because it's the kind of thing that we may want to bring on for other conversations in future meetings about the project itself. Again, our number one goal is to increase attendance. Second, very close second, is to make sure that we hear from as many people as possible at these meetings as we can. And so to the degree that we're able to achieve that moving forward, that's what we'll be measuring. And so please give us any feedback as to how we can make that happen. Well, I'm gonna bring back the presentation, if you can share screen again, and very briefly go through the agenda before passing it on to Sarah for our program updates. So also want to highlight what items, where the questions and answers are going to take place in between presentations. And of course, want to make sure that you're all reminded, we want to reduce interruptions as much as possible. Let's wait for presentations to make it through. And let's go ahead and make sure that people online are able to listen in, understand everything that's going on, and participate fully. We'll go on to the next slide, Laura, and the slide after that. Good. So we're going to get started with a program update from Sarah, as I mentioned. After that program update, we will have space for questions and answers. We're going to give you all a design update on Diridon Station specifically. That is a brief presentation where we won't have a robust discussion. However, there is a polling component where you can let us know if the design you're seeing reflects community feedback that you've heard out, as to what the priorities are. And then after that, we'll hear from Brent on a construction update before we go on to next steps before the hour is out. So without further ado, I'm gonna pass it to Sarah to take us through the presentation program update.
Perfect. So I'm not sure I've met most of you before, but I'm Sarah Hersum. I'm with the program management team. Have held various roles over the past 10 years in an almost full-time capacity on this program. Most recently as a program manager, and now sort of serving in a strategic advisory capacity. So filling in for Erica today, who was on a much deserved vacation and was really sorry she couldn't be here, but wanted to give you just a high-level overview of some of the major programmatic elements that are going on, and particularly those that have either been discussion at recent board meetings or are on the lineup for the meeting this week and in a couple weeks with the full board. Next slide. So quick recap of 2025. It was a very busy year last year that I think for those of you that have been active in the CWG have been probably tracking. We wrapped up a pretty intense cost saving exercise to try to align the cost of the project with the funding available. We started construction of what we call the West Portal, the 2DM launch structure, which is being built by joint venture CWG and Trailer. And that construction is going very well, by the way, on time, on budget. We completed in the summer of last year what we call the tunnel task force evaluation, and I think Martin, you referred to this as part of the single board, twin board, never-ending discussion. And as part of that, also went to the board and actually recommended to off-ramp our contractor, even though they are building a lot of work at the West Portal right now, because we've really struggled to come to alignment with them on the lump sum cost of this job. So I'm just going to put a plug there to some of the slides I'm going to talk about, kind of tie back to that. We did a peer review with some other agency participants from LA Metro and Sound Transit that was really, really useful. They suggested that although we recommended to off-ramp, we still continue conversations with our current contractor to see if there's anything that can be made to work there, which is also underway. In October, there was a pretty big board action to really memorialize the configuration of the job. And kind of moving beyond that to where we are today is really re-engaging on design advancement, making some decisions on contract packaging, and getting ready for an FFTA application. Next slide. So here's just some of the current efforts that are underway. There's a lot going on. So like I mentioned, design is barreling towards 60%. Really it was at 60% with some of the value engineering cost savings measures. Some of it got set back, so it's kind of getting trued up, which is largely under Greg. We're actively in the middle of a re-baseline effort, which is updating our estimates, our schedule, our risk register, to refresh the overall program cost. We're also getting ready for an FFGA application that's currently planned for later this year. I have a couple slides about that too. In addition to that, looking at the funding element of this program, and I think just acknowledging, what some of you may be aware peripherally is some of the budget challenges that BART as an organization, so not necessarily VTA, but BART as our key stakeholder partner here is having with their operating deficit and the role that MTC is playing in providing them a near-term loan as sort of a bridging element to be able to survive until hopefully a regional measure is passed later this year in November. VTA was supportive in terms of opting into this bill, SB 63, which will form the basis for this regional sales tax measure. And I think, although VTA itself is not having the operating deficit issues that BART, SFMTA, AC Transit and Caltrain are having. Obviously, it's a major coordination element in terms of if there's no BART, if there's no big BART, there's no need for a BART extension. So I think partnering with the other agencies and confident that the 5 counties will step up to support all of those agencies in kind of long-term viability. So it's not directly affecting what we're doing today, but it is sort of a consideration I just wanted to address. Also in the middle of looking at our contract packaging, ongoing West Portal construction, and looking at some additional early works construction opportunities. So I'll hone in on a couple of these items. Next slide. All right, so this is a layout of the West Portal, and I think I'm not going to go too far into this, but this is kind of straddles the city limits of San Jose and Santa Clara, and this is the 40-acre site that is currently under construction to be able to launch the TDN. There's a lot of precursor activities that need to happen before the TDN can be launched and turn under, we call it, which can happen as early as February of 2028, so 2 years from now. In advance of that, there's a number of different procurement, pretty significant procurements that need to happen for long lead equipment, for segment molds, which is for the tunnel liner segments that will be cast on site. Trying to be mindful with people online. So it'll be cast on site kind of in the blue area. It's a tunnel lining factory. They'll be stored on site in the purple area. There's foundations that need to be designed and installed in order to hold up these very heavy segments. There's some equipment installation and energization that needs to happen on the left side of the screen to be able to power the TDN. And so I say all this in the context that as we, and maybe if we move to the next slide, as we have gone down the path of needing to procure a new tunnel contract, we are seeing a schedule impact of about a year to a year and a half, and so have been requested by the board to look at sort of what options, you back up one slide, look at what options exist to try to award additional work to our current contractor that is generally low risk, which is the first column here, risk to advance. It's lower risk in terms of one contractor either procuring or performing the work, with another contractor ultimately running the machine. And also what is critical from a schedule standpoint, what's really beneficial to advance now. So where you see a lot of gaps, that's where we're focusing on potentially advancing that work. So that includes some of the storage foundations, the long lead procurement, the energization I discussed. The other items we're not advancing with KST right now. It's not to say that we won't look into adding more scope later. You can go to the next slide now. So this just shows a couple schedules. The schedule at the top shows this is really focused on a new tunnel contract award, which takes quite a bit of time. And so we're currently developing the procurement documents. There's about a year of this procurement process. And then early works that have to start before the tunnel gets launched, which is kind of the blue diamond area, the blue hatches. You can see on the bottom, by awarding some additional early works, we're able to kind of pull back that tunnel launch date. And, escalation on this job is, on shorthand, we call it $1 million a day. It's around $300 million a year. So, being able to accelerate critical path activities is really, really significant from a cost control standpoint. So trying to be mindful of just cost control in general. Next slide. So segueing a little bit, we have also been looking, and I think this comment was raised as well, about just overall funding and financial viability. I think one of the things that is a little bit outside of our control is the funding landscape at the federal level. So we have the benefit of being in the New Starts engineering process. So we have an agreement with VTA that if we meet, certain terms and conditions and make a submittal later this year and show a full funding plan, and that they have committed to partnering with VTA to about 40% of the cost of the job, which amounts to about $5 billion. That said, the funding landscape is a little bit uncertain right now, and we're tracking closely what is happening with other projects across the country, notably with those in New York, that are maybe a couple steps ahead of us and what's happening there. So we felt it was prudent that this was a request from the board to look at how we can be adaptive to that, still acknowledging FTA as a necessary partner in all of this, but doing a qualitative evaluation to see how we can adapt a 4-station project to some of this dynamic landscape. Next slide. So we had a couple options we looked at, said, all right, option one is really maintaining momentum, advancing all of our critical path activities, maximizing the extent that we have what's called pre-award authority with FTA, which means the expenses that the project is making and incurring right now, whether it's for professional services, for design, real estate, early works construction, is all eligible for reimbursement, even though we haven't actually submitted our grant application yet to FTA. So really continuing to do that and seeing how we can maximize utilization of the local, regional, and state funds that are currently committed to the project. So there's PERSIT funds at the state level, there's RM3 funds that MTC controls. So partnering with MTC and with ALTA to see how we can be adaptable. We also looked at another option, which is B, which is, I'm calling, it's still the same scope, 6-mile, 4-station project, but trying to be a little more conservative with our expenditures. So really just prioritizing the tunnel and one of the stations until we get an FFGA, and then continuing with everything else as planned. And I can go to the next slide. So we looked at some pros and cons for each of these, and I think generally speaking, there's far more advantageous aspects to really continuing to adhere to our current schedule and maintain momentum. Just it's consistent with what we heard from the peer review. It's consistent with what we're hearing, quite frankly, at the federal level, that this is what they want to see, acknowledging that delays are just the Achilles heels of these major programs. And I think has been something that this program has struggled with as well. The downside to really continuing to plow forward is, that we are drawing down in a more near-term manner the local, the state, and the regional funds. So, being mindful of other needs that the region has in terms of the other operating deficits that are trying to be supported near term as well. Option B is more just limiting our near-term focus to the tunnel and one of the stations. I think although that's probably a more conservative approach from an expenditure standpoint, it really is going to drive the overall cost of the program up because we're still committing to build everything. So it's going to take longer. The expenditures are happening later. There's not a lot of upside. So next slide, where we've kind of landed with all of this. Also, through discussions with MTC, with FTA, have agreed that, hey, we're at this time recommending to just continue moving forward, maximizing the pre-award authority the agency has, and really partnering with both MTC and CTC on a cash flow of funds that works for everyone, that works for VTA, that works for MTC, that works for the state. Also looking at refinements to the remaining contract packages to try to provide as much flexibility and avoid committing to things before we need to as part of that adaptability. And with all of that, maintaining project momentum. Next slide. So as part of this, we're looking at contract packaging. Like I was saying, right now, the general philosophy is to, instead of pursuing other alternative delivery contracts that need to be awarded sooner, really just focusing on advancing design, increasing our certainty in the cost estimate, and lowering the risk profile as far as how FTA views this. Which also buys us some time before needing to lock in on additional construction contracts. We are going to be soliciting additional industry feedback on that, but that's just sort of the near-term approach. Next slide, I'm going to blow through these pretty quickly, but I think we're going to have a discussion on delivery models, and in particular, one specific kind of delivery model that we're looking at the board meeting this week, and then again in April. So just wanted to sort of tee it up for this group. But when we talk about delivery models for those in construction, there's a number of different ways that can be done. There's contracts that have greater risk on the contractor side and those that have greater risk on the owner side. The risk exists, it's just a matter of where it's allocated. So if you hear us talk about design bid build, CNDC, progressive design build, which is what our current contract is with QHA trailer, design build, that's what this is. And then next slide, this just kind of shows for these different models, which we would call traditional contracting, collaborative contracting, lump sum contracting. There's different phases in which the contractor gets involved, and then also when you're sort of locking in your lump sum price. I say all this, if you go to the next slide, to just daylight that one of the things we are going to be talking to the board about is yet another contract model that we've been looking into as a potential go forward opportunity for tunnel contract, which is called a target price incentive based contract. It's a type of cost reimbursable contract that includes a fixed fee, so not percentage based, a fixed fee, and often some type of pain share, gain share component. It's called target price because you literally agree on a target price. And if the contract comes in under that price, there's some additional incentive fee or fee at risk, however you call it. And if it exceeds that target price, then fee is eroded and there's less profit for the contractor. This is a model that was recently included in the guidelines that FTA releases for project and construction management. And it's something that's been pretty widely used in the US for other types of energy and other markets outside of transportation infrastructure, but has been pretty successfully used in Ontario on a number of projects, Canada, and also in Sydney. Slide. So, why is this even something we're talking about? It's something that has been utilized successfully where there's a lot of complexity. There's risk premiums that are being built into contractor pricing. That's part of what we've been dealing with, and the challenges we've had here. It's a big tunnel, it's underground, these are not the most ideal soil conditions. And this is a way in which you're not prepaying for that risk and able to sort of jointly manage it better. We're also seeing just a general trend in the industry that there's a lower risk appetite in general with contractors. There's a lot of work and there's a higher level of selectivity with the types of work that they're going after. So it's trying to align with market interest as well. Then last slide this is just our current roadmap you may have seen previously, and which shows kind of all the interdependencies between design being advanced, the active construction going on, the decisions that need to be made by the board, ultimately trying to lead towards an FFGA full funding grant agreement in hand by summer of next year. So I think that's still what we're working towards, but also actively talking to FTA and determining if there's any refinement needed to that approach. I think that's the end of my slides, so happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. So I do see, Alan, you have your nameplate up. I do want to, before we go over to Alan, encourage people online, raise your hands. We are doing okay on time. We should have something around 5 to 10 minutes for questions and answers on this one. So getting started with Alan, then I saw some other people taking notes. I'll check in with you, Tony, as well. Go ahead.
Great. Thanks a lot for the presentation. That you said a lot of things that answered some questions I had and then triggered other questions. The one thing I remember from last year, that with all the cost savings thing, we still had a delta at the end. And I think it was the question that VTA was mentioning, well, we're hopefully gonna resolve that with moving to a new contractor. Now, is changing the structure from, I guess, more from fixed price to a cost plus incentive, is that where you think that's a majority of savings?
Possibly. I think we need to look at kind of have to look at it holistically. So I think there is opportunity for cost savings with going to a new contract model. I also think that we need to see sort of what comes of this pre-baseline, and as we're advancing design, confirming the cost savings we have. There's ongoing discussions with BART around the appropriate arrangement for the yard, which is another variable element there. And I think, quite frankly, before anything is submitted to FDA, we are going to need, as a program, to demonstrate that we have a funding plan to match whatever the cost of the job is. And so I think that's part of the ongoing partnership that VTA is advancing with MTC and the CTC, is to explore what options exist that isn't drawing more from local residents, but trying to fill the gap. So I know that's not exactly what you asked, but I think we're in the middle of trying to balance the sources and uses right now.
But we need to resolve that before we get the full funding.
Sure do.
Okay. And with the 1 to 2 year delay, does that mean that year 2038 is not looking less likely for passenger service?
I wouldn't say that we're there yet. I think we're some of I would call the additional early works awards that we're giving the contractor a mitigation measure to try to maintain the revenue service date that is in all the documents as best we can. And I think we're going to continue. So we have not, I think there's been no deviation from the revenue service date that have been discussed previously at this time. That's not to say that there's not pressures that are pushing it out. We're also looking at ways to bring it back, but still generally on track with the 2037, 2039 contingency that has been discussed previously.
And,
Do you have any additional questions? Do you mind if we check in with?
oh, yeah, go ahead.
First?
Yeah, I got one.
Again, folks online, you raise your hand if you have anything in mind. Tony, go ahead.
Well, certainly $300 million a year, we can get it quicker. That's an easy way to reduce deficit. So
For sure.
I think the early works piece is great, if it's chipping away, but it's just, we don't want to hit that stall because it is. But
Mhm.
my question was relative to the target price concept, which is, is that a form of IPD, integrated project delivery?
To some degree,
You're
it's
sharing
similar.
risk with contract.
It's similar. Yes, I think it has a couple different names depending on where you are. There's that, there's alliance contracting, I've heard it called. But yes, I think generally the owner is retaining more risk in this case. So you're controlling, if the contractor was pricing, $300 million for risk. And we say, all right, we would rather take that on as an owner. And we feel that we can implement X mitigation measures and maybe it's not 300 million, or we feel that we can better control that risk. It's sort of going through an effort with the contractor on who's best to own it, but VTA would ultimately be owning more risk as the bottom line than going with other.
Who's designing? Is this design built still, or is there a design that the contractor should price?
So for the tunnel contract, the design of the tunnel liner, we call it, so just the bored tunnel itself, is almost at 100%. So the design will be signed and sealed by the current engineer of record, and then that component would get let with a much higher level of cost certainty. There's elements within the contract that aren't quite at that level of design, and I think we're exploring options right now about who's best to retain that EOR responsibility. I think most likely it's going to be one of the engineers we have on board, either our GEC or one of KST's designers. They have some very reputable designers on their team. So I think there's different ways to solve that from a contracting standpoint with, VTA potentially needing to take assignment of contracts, but there's some pretty nuanced both design and construction interfaces that are informing which EOR is best to own things.
We did something similar to the convention center expansion when RDA imploded, a $300 million project couldn't be 300 million.
Mhm.
We realized that from DOT, we could get 120 million,
Mhm.
and we used the DE documents to prioritize and then did design build competition with a target price of 120 million, and they delivered it. So I think it can be done. It has been done. This is a much bigger thing, but there's quite a bit more going on there as opposed to the tunnel versus the station. Which I think we remember cost, but this is interesting. So.
Thank you, Tony. Before I come back to you, Alan, I do want to check in. Does anybody here in person or online have any other comments that hasn't raised their hand or turned over their nameplate?
Yes, I do want to say that I'm very happy to see that we're looking at these mitigation measures for full funding issues. Last year we asked at every meeting and we're just open. So that's good. So I'm just a little naive on, why is it bad one of the cons for using for Plan A to maintain momentum is that we'll be using up local, state, regional funds early. Is that because we have to bond it and there'll be more bonding costs? Is that the
Financing costs?
so
Yes.
more
Yeah.
that issue? Okay.
Yeah.
And the thing that I'm always tracking is construction, the CTFBs, the construction traffic management. When is the next one coming in? The last one was for the West Corridor, I believe, is when.
That may be better.
We're working on those now. We are going to be working with the city of San Jose on the Downtown-Diridon CTMP #2. We hope to have a draft out there fairly shortly. We'll review that with the city, and then we'll probably bring some of those information to the CWGs as well. So I think it's later in the slideshow we'll talk about when we'll do that. But it'll be the summer, fall timeline.
Okay, that's just for Diridon, not for both.
Diridon and downtown, we're kind of considering that one CTMP, and then there'll be another CTMP for the 28th Street station. And then there'll be a third CTMP, which is gonna be for the actual tunnel excavation. So everything that happens that's coming out of the tunnel, that'll be another CTMP, and we're just kind of doing it geographically. There will be construction activities that occur prior to the CTMP, such as the demolition of the building over here that occurred, and then repaving and restriping that occurred. So and some of the utility relocations don't really require a CTMP, so there's some early work stuff that will be done in advance of the CTMP actuality. But we hear that those are the things that Martin and Tony and Alan are concerned about, so we'll make sure we bring those up with you.
Yes. Yep. So at this moment, if you all don't mind, we can move on to the next presentation. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it.
I am, and I'm sorry to be rude, but I have to pick up my kids in Parkinson, and it closes in an hour, so.
Good luck.
Gotta go. All right, so we're gonna be talking about some design updates for Diridon Station. You're gonna see some visuals. As I mentioned, we won't have a very robust discussion on this, aside from any clarifying questions if you have any. But we do have a poll that is live as of right now. If you scan the QR code on your right in front of you on the paper there, I am also sending a link out to the chat for those that are panelists, members of the CWG. Check out the link on the chat. Should take you directly to the poll. And as Greg is going through the visuals, we'd like you to just answer that question before we move on. Go ahead, Greg.
Sure. Greg Tebow, I've been part of the CWG here for several years. I think I know most of you. I'm the program management team's facility engineering manager, so everything related to the stations and the yard is kind of under my purview. So that's why I'm here to present all the stations, 28th Street, Diridon, Downtown, and Santa Clara, when we do these CWGs. Also, San Jose State Spartans, so go Spartans. So I'm gonna chime in there. All right, so the first slide that we'll show you is just kind of the plan view of Diridon. We've got the same general concept that we've been talking about before. We've got that rounded station facade entrance that faces Santa Clara Street. We've got our back of house or station infrastructure facility that's behind it. It is merged into one building. So essentially, you'll see one structure that would be the whole station, and everything is housed in that one entity or that one element. As we move forward with our cost savings, we brought things from below grade to above grade, so it got a little taller. So we'll show you some of those things today, which is really a massing. Don't focus on the actual material of the building itself. We do have some options there, but we haven't selected color. We haven't selected exterior facade treatments in terms of exactly how it's going to look. Those are some things we'll bring to the CWG in the summer. We may have some additional workshops outside of the actual CWG that's scheduled for June. And we may be doing some things in May. We'll do some work in June and maybe actually follow up some more in July. And we'll kind of work through that with the group to see if what makes sense. So this is a plan view that shows, again, the Cahill, Montgomery, Santa Clara, and Post Street facility. When we go to the next one, we'll show the elevation fronting the station itself from Santa Clara Street. We do have a third entrance. I know at one point in time we just had entrances on the side facing Cahill and Montgomery. We did add fare gates that face Santa Clara, so that allows for quite a bit of access and to the station itself. We still have the 2 escalator run scenario, which just gets us down to the concourse level below grade. What we've been doing over the last 6 months is really trying to make that structure as efficient as possible. So, that's kind of what we've been doing behind the scenes, working with ARC, making sure all the facilities are lined up and all the required rooms are sized appropriately. So that's what we've been doing, and we don't have any color on this. Again, those are some things that we've got to work with this group on, as well as the architects, as we move forward. The next slide will show a little bit more of the facade looking east, I believe, from Cahill. So that'll just show you kind of the overall scale and magnitude of this facility from the front to the back. It's almost kind of like a 2 or 3 level kind of configuration. There is elements on top of the roof on the right side. There's elements in the roof in the middle. That's why there's that screening around there. And then we've got that rounded facade treatment that wraps that station frontage. But again, this will look probably like a two-story structure, generally speaking, a large two-story facility as you walk up to it. And the next slide just shows the other view on Montgomery, looking to the west. Oh, okay. So yeah, this shows the right side of the station here. We do have bicycle parking areas up in front of the station, and we do intend to have some seating areas as well as the bus connection and bus stop location there in Santa Clara. So this is just the general concept of this station. So, you know, take that pole, hopefully this kind of integrates a lot of the things that we've really worked hard to try to accomplish. Over the last several years, the station has really changed significantly, I think, from various rounded configurations to a square configuration back to kind of this overall facility. And again, you know, the left side looks very blank right now. We have an ability to make some changes to that to make it look a little bit less blank. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. We don't intend it to just be one flat wall like that. You can use different types of wall panels and various types of facade elements that'll really make different linear features. And we'll have options for us to consider. But really, it's kind of the separation of that lower portion and then an upper portion on the overall scale. So you can see that person standing there at approximately 6 feet tall. You know, this is a fairly large, big, tall structure. So we really try to maximize the efficiency of the station by consolidating as much as possible, and then also potentially allowing for that TOD development on this VTA parcel between the edge here on the left and Post Street. So we do have some property there that will be available. On opening day, it will be used for our bicycle parking and almost like a small little plaza area. But eventually it can be used for TOD.
Yeah, that's all I got. Just wanted to note, again, the poll is open. I've seen some responses come in. I'm gonna leave it open as we go through the construction update with Brent. But that question will change at the end of our meeting, so you can give us feedback on the meeting itself. Don't close the window. It'll just switch to the next question once the time is right, but you'll have the time to answer the question there. We have perhaps just a couple of minutes for any clarifying questions. It's noted that robust discussion and materials and the details around that will be discussed at a later date. Tony.
Just curious on the ceiling height for the side for the station space for people experience, is that like around 20 feet?
Yeah, we're at about 18 to 20, something like that on all three stations. We're trying to keep around that same height for all the stations. Great. Al?
Just a second. I do want to remind people online, if you do have any comments, any quick questions, you can do that. Raise your hand. Go ahead, Alan. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks for addressing that. Side treatments are still in discussion because that was the first question, but you brought up the bike thing. If there's no bike parking in this existing structure, it have to be in a TOD.
So if you go to the plan view, a couple slides back, actually the very front of the station will have a bike storage room. One more. Yeah, there you go. So these little tiny like half semicircular element on the left side of the screen here. And I don't know if you could point to that just below the CL A. Yeah, right to the left of that. There you go. So that's going to be a bike parking area.
Area or a room?
It'll be a bike room.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
Similar to what's that Berryessa and Milpitas that no one uses.
The bike, bike link lockers.
What's that? Yeah,
bike link lockers.
And then the bike lockers will be out. They'll be out on the plaza area behind the station there.
Okay.
Hopefully, more people will use that bike room facility as the ridership increases at the other station.
Yeah, it's if the bike link lockers get full up, I think it will, because of people who
Like the bike lockers, right?
Yeah, the individual lockers.
Okay. Okay, not seeing any other questions, raise hands online. Anybody else didn't speak yet, have anything they want to bring up in this, or move on? Thank you. Also, some responses coming in on the poll. As I said, it will remain open, asking it to you, Brent, for instruction.
Yeah, let's do it. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Brent Hurst, I'm the planning and engagement manager for the project here. Good to be with you again this evening. I'll try to make this construction update interesting. I appreciate the feedback, Bert, that maybe the work occurring in other elements of the project isn't always going to resonate, but still important to share with you all the progress, the great progress we're making. Sarah did steal my lead endpoint, which is the work at West Portal is on time and on budget right now, and we're making really good progress out there. So let's go to the next slide and just remind you all what we'll be talking about today. We're going to focus on the launch structure where the tunnel boring machine is going to be delivered and starting. So we'll be focusing on the West Portal. I'll walk you through some aerial views of what the construction looks like. Slide there. We showed you a previous iteration of this just to kind of orient everyone to the West Portal. On the right of the graphic here, we have Brokaw Road. On the left is Newhall. So PayPal is kind of down there on the park is down there on the lower left. North is kind of the bottom right corner, and the airport is on the bottom of this graphic, and Santa Clara University is on the top of the graphic here. So we're looking at different elements that are going to be constructed at the West Portal. We're going to be focusing on the blue kind of turquoise long rectangular square there in the top left part of the West Portal area. This is the tunnel boring, yep, right there. This is the tunnel boring launch structure. It's over 1,300 feet long. So let's zoom into it and see what this would look like if we are looking at the site from a drone or from a bird. I wanted to, it's been some time since we've shown you progress, I think since October, probably since you've seen construction photos out there. So this is an aerial taken in November. Just wanted to orient you to the left side of the graphic here. You can kind of see, this is what we call the caterpillar shaft. This is the deepest part of the launch structure. It's over, some of the walls are over 130 feet deep that we're constructing underground. You can see kind of these open pits here. We walked you through those last time. Those are called Y panels, but they're 130-foot deep holes where we've been putting some rebar cages in there to kind of really help enforce this structure and prop it up for the tunnel boring machine in the future. Moving over kind of to the middle of the structure here where it says U walls there, you can see that we've really started some of the excavation of the soil. So we're starting to remove soil from this site. A lot of trucks have been going in and out in January and February. We've been making a lot of progress there. And then to the right, in November, we had already started to pour part of the ramp. So remember, this structure is going to be used by the machine to launch. So we'll be driving materials down this ramp. But then during revenue service or operating service, the trains will be ascending or descending the structure as well. Not as deep as some of the construction is now, but they'll be at about like an 80 to 90 foot level at the deepest. Okay. So let's go to January and see the progress that we made. You can kind of see now the middle of the launch structure is changing. So if you look at the section on the left that says cut and cover, realizing this is pretty small here, you can kind of see a little bump out starting to form. This is kind of one of the main areas where we're going to lower some of that big equipment down into the launch structure. This machine is very large. So we've designed the structure to have a little bit more space for the workers down there. We're also getting deeper in our excavation at this point. They're starting to put, you can see kind of those big long lines going across the structure. We call those struts. They're attached to the walls with something called whalers. So they're actually 2 levels deep here, already about 30 to almost 40 feet deep. Now let's go to February as well. Keep your eye on the left part there. You'll start to see more of the excavation progressing. So now we've started excavating all the way up to the deepest part of the shaft, the caterpillar shaft as we call it. At this point in the excavation, even now in March where we're at, so this is about 2 weeks ago, As of earlier this week, we're at about 35% of all the excavation we need out of this structure. So we're making a lot of progress, and we hope to be in May about 50% of excavating all the soil out of the structure. We're starting to pour more of the ramp, so there's concrete being delivered to the site every day. We've already brought almost 7,000 trucks to the site, and probably sometime in May or June, we'll be at about 10,000 concrete trucks. So it's a lot of concrete that's being poured up there. All right, next slide. Before we press play, I just wanted to orient you. We showed you one of these before. This is going to be a drone flyover of the actual site. So this is pretty fun, but it's a little disorienting if you don't know what you're looking at. So the drone is going to be flying in a southerly direction on the site, above the structure. So behind you will be where the future Santa Clara station will be. And in front of you will be the launch structure. So we're going to fly you down the ramp, and I'll point out a couple of things that have changed. And we hope to do this every quarter with you so you all can see the progress. So let's go ahead and hit play there. So we're directly above the ramp right now as it starts to descend. All the walls are in place. Still have some cranes operating. You can see that small little, this is kind of laggy on my end, small little square staircase that's been installed. We're at a deep enough level now that the workers needed some additional stairs. We also recently installed some bridges, and you can see the bump out there as well in more detail. So over the last couple months, we've had as many as 16 or 17 heavy pieces of equipment or cranes on site. And now that most of the walls of the structure are completed, the main subcontractor out there for KST, Malcolm, who is doing a lot of the construction of these walls, they're starting to demobilize some of their cranes so that we're going to start to see a lot less equipment up in the air. Walk you through a couple photos, and then we'll do questions at the end here. So you can see an example. These are some of the crews here in the lower left. They're delivering concrete. They're pouring some of those walls that we're constructing underground. You can see some of the cranes or excavators here. They kind of dig down to form these walls where we put the rebar and help shore up the structure there. And then on the right, some of these workers are installing what's called a tremie pipe. That's in preparation of getting the concrete actually down into the structure. And it's really fun. There's not a bad day out there, having, only getting to go out there every couple of weeks. It's a lot of work. It changes really week by week when you're out there. So let's show you what the excavation looks like. You can kind of see the rainbow in there, right? It's shining at that pot of gold, a last or a first station, depending on where you are, right, in the extension. So it's kind of pointing at Santa Clara Station there. It's just really joyful to see kind of the progress in the whole the excavation starting to form. Next slide. It's pretty interesting how the contractor has been doing the excavation to date. So on the left, you can see them pouring concrete from a big pump down into the structure to form what we call the slab at the bottom of the structure or the ramp. To date, they've also been excavating that way as well. So they're using an excavator outside of the structure to reach down and grab at the soil. Now they're finally at a level where it's so deep where they can't do that. So they're going to start excavating from within the structure itself and hauling it out in different ways. On that left graphic too, you can see a bridge. We've installed 1 or 2 bridges over the structure, so craft and staff can maneuver around the site easier. And then again, an example on the right here of one of these huge rebar cages that is being placed into the ground, into a pit. It's being placed into a material called bentonite, which helps us then pour concrete down into these big giant holes. It's been a sight to see these big, massive panels getting installed to form up this structure. So a lot of progress. And looking towards the early part of next year to be completed with the launch structure. So if there's any questions, let me know.
Of course, thanks, Brent. I see we have one person here. I don't know if there's any. Yeah, okay. We want to check online, Henry, James, and Nate. Anything that comes to mind for you all about this update you want to ask a question about?
I don't know if it's on. I don't know, the laptop is, says joining webinar timeout or browser restriction.
Yeah, so we do have the Chromebooks, they're on different networks. And so there might be a lag, that's what you're all seeing as well. That's okay, it doesn't impact the actual meeting itself. Laura's computer and our host computer, they're on different networks. Should be fine. Okay, seeing no, Nate, go ahead. I saw
Just
you.
wanted to say no, thank you for asking, but no questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody here in person have any questions, comments on the construction update?
You can come. It's good.
Yeah,
Will do.
This is the exciting part that
It is.
people need, so this is good stuff.
Really happened.
Wonderful. So, with that, we move on then to some next steps. And I have switched the question on your polls around, rating today's CWG meeting. We've tried some different things, and of course, we want to make sure that you let us know, especially for those online, how did we do on the audio visual component? Was this a quality experience for you all? And to the degree that it isn't, of course, we'll reach out and have that conversation. Also want to ask about your thoughts on the group discussion opportunities we opened and the facilitation as well. Curious to hear what you thought about the pacing. And then, of course, want to hear your thoughts on the polling component, whether it's something that we want to bring back again. And lastly, there is a point here, a statement that says the content was presented clearly and delivery was engaging. And of course, you rated between 1 and 5, 1 being strongly disagree with that statement, and 5 being strongly agree. I'm gonna leave that open through the end of our conversation here. We do have 13 minutes and we have some next steps to run through, so this is what we're going to do. And then want to open up the space for any, thoughts broadly from the CWG. I might do a roll call again and check in just to see if there's any thought, and then anybody from the public as well. We go on to the next slide, please. Gonna run through some next steps. Looking at the next conversation that we are going to have as of right now is scheduled for Tuesday, the 9th of June. In that conversation, there will be program updates like we did today, funding conversation as well, and we'll have a more detailed discussion on station design is what we're projecting. We'll discuss an update on MUD and the construction transportation management plan for Downtown-Diridon, as well as the Diridon station parking lot closures, whole closure that's coming up. We will be advised, we will potentially be having an interim meeting sometime in May and or July, so before or after our regular second quarter meeting. And in that conversation, there will be a focus on the plaza and station facade treatment and finishes, interior review, etc. So much more detail on what we were presenting on today. We can move on to the next slide, please. After that, we are projecting that there will be another 2 meetings, third quarter and fourth quarter meeting on Tuesday, September 15th, and then November 17th before the year is out. Of course, there may be interim meetings that happen interspersed in between these as they are scheduled right now. Let's see here, and the next slide, please, before we finish up and go around the room. We do have a number of meetings you should all know about on the VSB side of things. The oversight committee is meeting Thursday, March 12th, April 9th, May 14th, and June 11th. All of those at 12 noon. And then we've got the upcoming VTA Board of Directors meetings on Thursdays, April 2nd, May 7th, June 4th, at 5:30. My understanding is those are where decisions would be relevant to this, that are scheduled, is that true?
Definitely all the oversight committee meetings, and then I'm sure about the future board meetings, but we always have a project update for the board. So it's a smaller condensed version of what we present to the oversight committee, unless there's an action necessary.
Thank you, Brent. So I'm gonna, like I said, go around, we have 10 minutes to go. Curious to hear any thoughts broadly. This is where you can share about any one thing you heard about today, ask any questions, make any suggestions for our next meeting in June. Want to start online, then gonna make my way back here to the room in person. Nate, do you mind us starting with you, and then I'm gonna go over to James.
Thanks for the meeting. No comments, no questions.
Thanks, Nathan. James, gonna go over to you next, Henry.
When do we have a situation where money, lack of funding begins to impact the progress?
Your question is what if? Or when? James, can you repeat, is it when or what if?
I'm not clear what you're asking.
I believe the question was when do we have
That wasn't.
an issue with funding gets in the way of progress or slows down progress?
James, I think as Sarah presented to us earlier tonight, this is something that is prioritized at each meeting with our oversight committee and with the board. So we presented here today kind of some of the strategies that we're working on and some of the conversations that we're having with some of our local and regional partners to keep that conversation moving forward. I don't know if we have a specific when to answer your when at this time, but it's something that we're going to always bring front and center to the working group, the progress that we're making, or check in with you all about where we're at.
Great. Thanks, Brent. Henry?
Yeah, thanks a lot for this meeting. I think my question is, what are the takeaways that you would like us to share with our communities? And I just keep saying our communities. I mean, we're all one community, but like with our constituencies. And so, I think this presentation has been shared with us. At this point, I don't have action items that I would like to present to either the cabinet at SDSU or other kinds of constituents. I think this is very exciting. Being able to see the plans for Diridon, being able to see the actual how far it's been dug in the ground. For some reason, that visual is really like, oh shoot, this is actually happening. And so I think that as we get closer, I think it would be really good to have some kind of for us to be able to play some role in the publicity of this. And to potentially answer some questions or things like that. But I really enjoyed this meeting. Thanks a lot for the more interactive format. Really appreciate it.
Right. And the question that was asked is there anything in particular that we're wanting CWG members to bring back to the community in this instance of the meeting?
Other than just general information, I don't think specific actions for this meeting, Anne Marie. The upcoming potentially interim or June meeting will, be important, those contributions. There are other San Jose State members that also provide some of that design feedback, Kohar and others. So wanting to just make sure that, your whole community is present for those future conversations that we have and start to hone in on design and elements. Something to think about moving forward.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Anne-Marie.
May I also note that I will send out updated presentations, Anne-Marie, and we will upload them to VTA's website, and those presentations will be the ones that we ask you share with the community if you like. They'll be updated.
Thank you.
Great. Coming back to the room here, Alan, I see you have your nameplate turned, and I'll make my way from left to right, starting with after Alan and finishing up with Fernando.
I've got different people that are interested in different things that got grouped out. always like to talk about finance and stuff, so I think I got some good information to bring back on that. Other folks just want to see production pictures, so, so it's, the update of the presentation is good. My main comment is CTMPA, it's just like before, I would like to be get as early copy or rough draft as possible to review. If you're looking for any feedback, I'm happy to review it. Folks in my neighborhood.
Thank you for that, Alan. Just want to note too that not only will we be talking about those plans here with this group, but there'll also be an additional public process too that will be doing general engagement and outreach with the community. So you as members bringing your communities to that space to amplify voices and provide feedback will be another important role or process as well for the CTM.
Thank you.
The only question I was gonna have was, getting where we're gonna be able to get the updated presentations, but she's answered that, so I'm good.
All right.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you.
The June meeting, are we gonna look at boat station designs?
Yeah, so we did have some more information, on those stations. Arnold.
Yes, I did comment on the station design in Diridon because again, I know it's in a draft form, and I just want to ensure that we're looking at that a little bit more in depth because I see a circle and a box basically, and really it's a station that's visible all the way around. So how does that really interface with the Diridon station? Obviously with the arena, I think is really important. And then also another thing, I don't know what we're talking about that, then about the public ground that's around it. I know we just saw all the trees, so that's critically important in terms of how that's engaging Diridon arena, as well as our neighbors. So there's opportunities in and around that neighborhood to really engage it. So like to see when in fact that's going to be part of the discussion, so that we can get into it and really, I can have some of our team there to really understand what's happening and how it's happening. The takeaways is really important for me in terms of the schedule, funding, and design is really fairly basic. I need to, want to make sure that I can upgrade them because it's been a while since I made a presentation to our board, our members. So that's what they asked me basically. So what's happening? When is this going to be done? What does this look like? So those are really important factors, and I appreciate the presentation here. But if I was giving it, it would be difficult to extract the specific facts, very specific about what this is. So as we're moving forward, we're updating the schedule, we're updating the funding and design components of it. So that's really important. So I want to make sure that we get into that or the discussion that we could have so I can bring that forward. And then if I could, look at this VTA meetings, I know this at 12 p.m. Is there any locations that are identified as where those meetings are going to take place? It's important to make sure that that's on a schedule so that we can, Chris and I can go back and forth about who we're going to represent and where it's going to be. So I think that's really important also. And then, that's, one of the funding. Previously, there used to be a summary that was given to us that we could engage to our team. And that would be a lot, I think, better for us to be something like summary, basically something like this, that we can, again, talk about the schedule, the funding, and design.
Sounds great, and I know we're learning a lot of what you just talked about, and we'll be in conversation with you and figure out next steps on those things so we can have the tools you need to provide those updates. Fernando.
I think maybe I've already touched on this, but for the next following meeting, I think it's probably pretty easy for me to get the urban planning students to attend or to feel involved. But what's your advice for students outside of those departments to get them more interested in these topics? Because from my understanding, I have had a struggle like explaining these projects to people who aren't in the urban planning department and getting them to not oppose it or be against the idea of having So I think that would be my question, is maybe on advice on how, if anyone knows how to approach that with people who aren't that interested in
Yeah.
what we're doing.
So I think again, this maybe is something that we follow up with and have a conversation with you, Fernando, specifically on what that could look like and how we could support you. And also I would like to talk, also involve Anne Marie in this conversation and figure out like what are the avenues where we could get the message out to people beyond those focused only on this.
That would be great. That would be great. Thank you.
Awesome. Is there anything more, Fernando, you have any?
No, that was my concern at the moment.
That's, yeah, great thoughts. Let's talk about that. I'm interested in that. It is 6 p.m., so I am interested in finishing the meeting on time. Thank you all for showing up. Brent, you had something else to add?
I was just gonna quick, Martin, the answer is, for your question, our oversight committees are held at, VTA headquarters, River Oaks facilities, and then our board meetings are held at the county building as well. And we'll follow up with that, but just for now, I wanted to share.
When are we ever gonna be at the new headquarters?
We're all waiting.
Thank you all. I appreciate your
Thank
time
you all.
once again. Thank you. Yeah.